So now I am deciding to respond to an article on NintendoLife. The article is titled Talking Point. The time is right for Microsoft and Nintendo to get comfier with one another. Considering the timing of this article, it's pretty odd considering that this is a year where Microsoft is going to release their next piece of hardware, Xbox Series X. So let's get started.
Forgive us for going back over old ground we've already covered, but could Microsoft and Nintendo please just stop flirting with one another and hook up?
I already have to say sod off.
The fact that the two firms have enormous respect for one another isn't fresh information. Heck, they collaborated so that Banjo and Kazooie could appear in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, for crying out loud.
Oh, so right away you have to bring up Banjo-Kazooie. Reeks of desperation.
But as the next generation war looms ever closer, the timing becomes ever more perfect for the kind of Microsoft-Nintendo alliance that hasn't been seen since the WII 60 days. Let's consider the lay of the land here. Microsoft is about to launch its Xbox Series X console, which will be going up against Sony's PlayStation 5.
So why are you making this article? If Xbox Series X is coming this year, why would it be smart for Nintendo to want to comfy up with a competitor?
The latter of which we'll be seeing a lot more of tomorrow. While Nintendo fans naturally have no skin in this particular game, it's fair to say that Sony, as the current market leader, is holding most of the decent cards. The PS4 has utterly trounced Xbox One in terms of global sales, to the point where Microsoft stopped officially stating how many machines it has sold some time ago, and Sony's enviable stable of internal development studios has churned out smash hit after smash hit, including Spider-Man, Horizon Zero Dawn and the upcoming The Last of Us Part 2, which despite a rather bumpy ride of late, is shaping up to be something truly special. Microsoft, on the other hand, seems to be saving its powder for the impending next-gen war, although its promise to support both Xbox One and Series X for the next few years is interesting.
If Sony is selling more consoles than Microsoft, and Nintendo is selling more consoles than Microsoft, then why does Nintendo need Microsoft?
But where does Nintendo fit in all of this?
To the Galaxy brain writing this article, wondering where Nintendo fits in all of this, they are competing with Sony and Microsoft for the consumer's money.
The Japanese veteran has positioned itself outside of the traditional arena by creating a console that acts as both a domestic and portable system, and that strategy has enabled it to sell 55 million units since 2017. In terms of momentum, the Switch is the console of the moment, but whether that will remain the case once new hardware hits store shelves remains to be seen. Nintendo has protected its market to a degree by providing consumers with something that neither Microsoft nor Sony is offering: a handheld games console, which delivers true AAA experiences. But, as we've discussed before, the already worrying power gap that exists between the Switch and its rivals is only going to expand by the time the PS5 and Xbox Series X touch down.
Okay, but Nintendo's had to innovate since the PlayStation came along. In an industry where three other companies have designed traditional game consoles that specialize in the best graphics, Nintendo needed a different approach. Just because the Switch is a different console doesn't mean that it no longer is trying to be a competitor to Sony and Microsoft. Not at all.
So, where does this leave the three major players? Sony is understandably happy to continue as it always has done. Sure, it's working with Microsoft on cloud technology and is making moves to bring its first-party games to a wider audience by releasing older games like Horizon Zero Dawn on PC, but ultimately Sony knows that it's in a strong position in the console market and has no reason to work any more closely with one of its rivals when it comes to software-hardware. Sony as a company is heavily reliant on its PlayStation division right now, and that means it has to make the PS5 as big a commercial success as it can.
And, your point being? That's their goal all along. Why would it not be?
Microsoft, on the other hand, has long been adamant that it wants its games and services to reach as many people as possible, and only this week Xbox boss Phil Spencer stated that the company's focus is the player and not the device. Microsoft is trying its hardest to make its Game Pass subscription service as successful as possible, and also has Project xCloud waiting in the wings. Currently in testing, this cloud-based service will allow active subscribers to play Xbox games across a wide range of systems, including computers, smartphones and tablets, and will enable Microsoft to turn people who don't even own an Xbox console into loyal paying subscribers. The company knows that we're inevitably moving towards a hardware-agnostic future, and is doing everything it can to make sure it has the foundations in place to capitalize on that shift.
Oh, let me guess, you want Microsoft to piggyback off of Nintendo's success. You want Microsoft services on Nintendo platforms so that you would no longer need to buy and play officially licensed Nintendo games. Yeah, take a hike.
Nintendo has a console which has a massive market share and offers millions of turned-on players who have already gobbled up what Microsoft is offering. Cuphead, Ori and the Blind Forest and Minecraft Dungeons, the latter of which has the distinction of recently topping both the Xbox and eShop charts, have all launched on Switch to commercial success, which shows that Microsoft sees the benefit of opening up its catalog of IP to a rival system in order to reach a hitherto unattainable audience.
Let's also conveniently leave out that Cuphead is on Mac, and a number of old Xbox One games are on Steam, such as Halo, the Master Chief Collection, Recoil, and Sunset Overdrive. Castle Crashers Remastered is also on PS4. Their philosophy is for the games that they can no longer sell to gamers, that they can port them to other platforms in order to continue making money. As for Minecraft, this IP was always multi-platform. Even before Microsoft bought out Mojang.
It's a sensible approach, turn off your loyalties for certain hardware vendors, and that is obvious. If the aim is to sell as many copies of a game as possible, why limit yourself to just one system when another console can bring millions of extra sales? This tactic makes even more sense when your current home system is struggling for air, of course.
Is that what Nintendo did when the Wii U was struggling? Was Mario Kart 8 considered for the PS4? Did we have Super Mario Bros. U on Xbox One?
Which brings us to Rare.
No shit. Let's talk about Rare because that's the real reason for writing this article.
And our traditional appeal.
Traditional appeal? What in the world does that mean?
To Microsoft to allow Rare Replay to come to Switch. Well, that crime might be getting quite old now. We're still not entirely sure why Microsoft hasn't already released the UK studio's back catalog on Switch. Nintendo fans would lap up the likes of Banjo-Kazooie, Jet Force Gemini, Blast Corps, Diddy Kong Racing and Conker's Bad Fur Day, as well as the countless other NES, SNES and Game Boy titles the company produced in such high volumes back in the 80s and 90s. It's a revenue stream that could only really make sense via a Nintendo platform, and it feels like an open goal that Microsoft has yet to notice.
Here's a novel concept. It's going to really blow your mind, okay? Here it goes. Why not just buy an Xbox?
Of course, Nintendo could argue that the idea of allowing xCloud to come to Switch, which, lest we forget, is based on the same mobile architecture seen in the many tablets and phones which Microsoft intends to support with the service, would undermine sales of its own software, but we're sure there's some way around such a situation, perhaps a small kickback for every Switch owner who subscribes to the service.
Again, an Xbox service on Switch. Why? Doesn't the Switch offer enough? If you have an Xbox and you have a phone, that's all you need to use Project xCloud. Why do you need a Switch? And if you need an Xbox? You can already play Rare Replay. You should have thought this through.
Well, the complexities of business will no doubt play a vital role here. xCloud coming to Switch is a tangible benefit for both companies. Microsoft reaches a wider audience and gains more subs, while Nintendo could potentially see the Switch given additional longevity at a point where it begins to look very long in the tooth compared to PS5 and Xbox Series X.
Why would Nintendo want to agree to that? That would basically be free money to Microsoft where Nintendo and its third-party developers would suffer. If you can't buy the game at retail stores or on the Switch eShop, Nintendo doesn't want anything to do with it. No, you'd basically reduce the Switch to a second screen, like a phone.
Whatever happens, we're in the unique situation where the three main players in the console hardware arena all have slightly different objectives. Sony is taking the traditional route of dominating the living room with killer exclusives and gaming-focused hardware, while Microsoft sees the Xbox Series X as just one pillar in a strategy that also includes cloud and PC gaming. Meanwhile, Nintendo has long abandoned the tiresome technology war and instead offers a totally unique experience which can't be found elsewhere. Contrast this to the situation the industry was in back at the dawn of the millennium, when the PS2, Xbox and GameCube were all similarly powered, and therefore aiming for largely the same audience, as was evidenced by the high volume of third-party titles that launched across all three systems. It will be interesting to see what the lay of the land looks like in 2021, but from our perspective, Microsoft and Nintendo only have gains to make if they decide to work more closely than they do already.
Nintendo's not going to do this. It's not going to help them. Any service like xCloud or Game Pass would only hurt game sales. Nintendo fanboys don't care, they just want to play a 20-plus-year-old N64 game.